DW Africa Link.
And a very warm welcome to yet another edition of Africa Link, where we bring you stories that make headlines from the continent. My name is Isaac Mugabi.
And I am Mimi Mefo. Remember that the show is also streaming live on our Facebook page, DW Africa, and also our partner stations across the continent.
Coming up on the program, a prolonged political struggle between the federal government and regional states in Somalia is threatening the country's election, slated for February 8th, that's next week.
The ongoing talks among Somali leaders have to address the outstanding issues, and participants should compromise to save the country.
And also ahead, Cameroon separatist fighters ignore the visit of the Vatican's envoy and call for a 10-day lockdown in Bamenda. What was their message?
The Pope is actually an international figure, and the separatists used this to send a message, a strong signal to the international community.
These are some of the stories that we've lined up for you today.
But first, the world news in brief.
DW News.
Welcome to DW News with me, Josie Mahachi. The United Nations Security Council is preparing to meet in an emergency session to discuss the military coup in Myanmar, which governments worldwide have condemned. The U.S. is threatening to reimpose sanctions. Myanmar's former de facto civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi has been detained and hundreds of officials confined inside government housing compounds. The World Health Organization, WHO, has said the global number of new confirmed cases has declined. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said while many nations are still seeing infections increasing, the latest figures show that countries can contain the virus.
For the third week in a row, the number of new cases of COVID-19 reported globally fell last week. There are still many countries with increasing numbers of cases, but at the global level, this is encouraging news. It shows this virus can be controlled, even with the new variants in circulation. And it shows that if we keep going with the same proven public health measures, we can prevent infections and save lives.
Meanwhile, Nigerian authorities are battling a second wave of infections that have caused nationwide oxygen shortages. Hospitals in the capital Abuja are overwhelmed, and in Lagos, the center of the outbreak, new cases have been registered. Nigeria was spared the worst in its first COVID-19 wave, but a second wave has hit it hard. It has over 130,000 confirmed cases and over 1,500 deaths. This news comes to you from DW, Germany's international public broadcaster. Chinese police have arrested more than 80 suspected members of a criminal group manufacturing and selling fake COVID-19 vaccines. The vaccines were sold in China and to other countries, but it is still unclear which ones. The group had been active since last September, according to state media. Russian police have detained more than 300 people in Moscow as a court convened to decide whether to jail Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny for up to 3.5 years. Navalny, an anti-corruption investigator who is the most prominent critic of President Vladimir Putin, was arrested on January 17 upon returning from Germany, where he had spent 5 months recovering from a nerve agent poisoning that he blames on the Kremlin. Russian authorities denied the charge and claim. For more news, visit our webpage dw.com/Africa. I am Josie Mahachi.
And you're listening to DW's Africa Link program. Once again, my name is Isaac Mugabi.
And I am Mimi Mefo. Welcome you on board there on our DW Africa Facebook page. Isaac, I can see Bobga, Ronald. You say happy new month to you. New month. Thank you so much. Jibo, Miss Pa, you are greeting us here in the studio. Thank you. And there's Ansu. I can see you listening live. David Chambers, always. We welcome all of you there on board.
Now, we begin today in Somalia, that is preparing to go for a crucial election next week on February the 8th that will determine the country's fate and politics in the Horn of Africa. Somalia's presidential elections were originally planned for December 2020 but were pushed back for logistical reasons and political disagreements between the central government in Mogadishu and its federal states.
Now, with the election in less than 1 week, the stakes are very high, Isaac, as some regional states are threatening to boycott the vote. For 3 days, the country's top politicians will be meeting to end the political stalemate. Could the parties come to a compromise? DW's Mohamed Odowa in Mogadishu attempts to answer that question in this report, which is now being presented by Abubakar Jallo.
Among the main outstanding issues are the controversial election commission and the parliamentary slots from self-declared breakaway Somaliland in the north. Somalia's information minister, Usman Dube, explains the importance of today's meeting ahead of the elections next week.
We are
here in Dusamareb to attend the meeting summoned by President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo with leaders of federal member states. We are expecting to have amicable and open discussions for a fruitful solution to unlock the deadlock and create hopes to the people of Somalia regarding the election issues.
With only 6 days to the expiration of President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo's term in office and no agreement for the elections in place with breakaway regions, there are fears that the country could plunge into a constitutional crisis. Awi Salat, a Somali-based political analyst, explains.
It's a constitutional principle to have a legitimate government and leadership every 4 years, but the current administration has failed to implement the one-man, one-vote system. The ongoing talks among Somali leaders have to address the outstanding issues, and participants should compromise to save the country.
Opposition groups accuse the current president of rigging the previous elections and have called for the Election Commission's disbandment. Amran Elman, a university student, says delaying elections could be risky and frustrating for Somalis in Mogadishu, especially the youth.
The election is so important for us as a future generation of this country, but I am frustrated about the current situation and the political background among Somali politicians. I will say, please stop infighting and accept our voice for a peaceful transition.
More than 20 presidential candidates, among them 2 former presidents, are running for the presidency. Time is running out for all political players in Somalia to join hands and work together. A security crisis also looms, and without a doubt, Islamist militants could take advantage of it.
That was a report by Mohamed Odowa, presented by Abubakar Jallo. Now, for a better understanding of the prevailing political situation in Somalia, please visit our website, dw.com/Africa. We have an interesting article there, a fresh article to understand what's going on in Somalia. Now, Mimi, we have some comments, of course, as usual.
On our Facebook, we asked, with so much uncertainty, do you think that the election would actually go ahead on Monday? Sadak Adam responded, saying that the elected president becomes the dictator and there is any election process ongoing so far. But he has forgotten the path taken by Siya Barre, previous dictator.
Rafa Eli says the African Union must, as a matter of urgency, do something about Somalia before it gets out of hand. They will not act now when it turns out like Mali. They will step in to side with the dictator.
And this comment from Ejoy Michael, we are only going to hear of car bombs exploding and heavy gunfire exchange between the militants and the peacekeeping forces.
Anyway, we at Africa Link, we are committed to bringing you the Somali story as it develops until next week when the elections are held. The Constitutional Court in the Central African Republic has ordered a new vote in 13 constituencies where the elections have been cancelled. The court scrapped the legislative election results over irregularities. Now,
Daniel Dalan, the court's chief judge, said that the irregularities include manipulation of ballot boxes, acts of violence which prevented the sincerity of the vote. It remains unclear how an election, Isaac, is going to be rerun in this country, which is largely controlled by the armed groups.
That is the question, actually, Mimi. I'm also wondering, because already, as remember, we reported this story from the start. And there are always issues in some areas that the rebels, were kind of trying to create chaos. And the MINUSCA forces troops, remember Russia deploying and also Rwanda deploying. Yeah, now the Constitutional Court says, 13 constituencies, elections have to be rerun.
Well, what do you think about what's happening in the Central African Republic? And this is coming just after the presidential elections, whose results are also being contested by the opposition leaders in the country.
All you have to do, just go to our Facebook page, DW Africa, that is your platform, and leave us your comment there. By all means, Mimi and I will read it live here on air. To Cameroon now. Cameroonians are now having their eyes and ears fixed on Yaoundé, the country's capital, following the recent visit of the Vatican Secretary of State Cardinal Pietro Parolin. Mimi, that is the second highest rank official of the Vatican.
Right.
And he's there he calls on President Paul Biya and separatists to embrace all peace moves to end the conflict in Anglophone regions.
Now, Isaac, the visit of the Vatican's number 2 to Bamenda, that is in the restive northwest region of Cameroon, comes during the armed conflict, at a time when thousands of lives have so far been lost, and this crisis has been dragging on for 5 years now. Amid lockdown and heavy gun battles, separatists say that the goal is to send a message to the international community. Jean-Marie Ngonsong is in Bamenda.
The past 10 days in the city of Bamenda has been so traumatizing to the city dwellers. People have been asked to stay home for several days. They cannot go to the market. People have been indoors. They wake up in the morning to gunshots. People who are supposed to maybe travel to the divisions to visit their relatives and maybe visit some of them who are sick. They have not been able to move because cars have been restricted to move by the separatist fighters. It has been actually a black art moment for the city dwellers of Bamenda.
This lockdown has really affected me. We had a burial in Bangui, and my family traveled from Yaoundé, Douala. They came to Bamenda, but they were not able to come to Bangui, so they finally went back without coming to the burial.
This lockdown has really affected me because as a student, I was living in my city. To go to the market was not easy for me. And for the stores that were selling around, the shops, they were selling quite twice the price they used to sell. So I stayed in my house. I had nothing to eat.
Mimi, you can hear some of these city dwellers of Bamenda speaking, and this happened because of the visit of the Cardinal and the Secretary of State at the Vatican.
Jean-Marie, why would separatists pick such an important visit, that is Cardinal Pietro, who is the Pope's envoy, to call for a lockdown in the Anglophone region of Cameroon?
You know, Mimi, the Pope is actually an international figure, and the separatists were very smart to have used this to send a message, a strong signal to the international community that there is a crisis going on in the Anglophone region now for 5 years, and there is no solution. It is not like the separatists did not want the Secretary of State at the Vatican, Cardinal Pietro, to visit the Northwest, but they wanted to use the opportunity to tell them that this is a city, a region in crisis and in war.
And what voice does the Catholic Church has in Cameroon, especially when it comes to handling political issues like the Anglophone crisis?
Well, Mimi, you know, the Cameroon community is predominantly Christian, and a greater majority of these people are Christians. President Paul Biya is a Catholic himself, a baptized Catholic. He's a former seminarian. He has been to the seminary. Pope Francis has been in Cameroon twice, and each time Paul Biya has an opportunity, we see him visiting the Pope in Italy. The Cardinal came with a message of peace. He told reporters in Bamenda and Yaoundé that Pope Francis has asked him to tell the President of Cameroon to embrace peace and seek peace to end the Anglophone crisis. Before even the coming of the bishop, there has been an all-Anglophone conference that was organized by the bishops of Cameroon, the Muslim leaders. People are now expectant that given the religious and the Catholic background of the president, he might do something to end the crisis now.
I was speaking there to DW's Jean-Marie Ngonsong in Bamenda Northwest region of Cameroon.
And Mimi, I see some people on our Facebook page reacting to your interview there. Well, what I can tell, Fidelia Amber, I see there, we read your comment. But Mimi was talking to our own correspondent in Bamenda, Jean-Marie Ngonsong. So is our correspondent, and we trust our correspondents, don't we, Mimi?
And of course, we also keep our ears on the ground to report just the facts and what's happening on the ground. And we also have a lot of comments, Isaac, like Fabo Cyprian, who says that was there an offer from the visiting cardinal to meet the separatists? That's a question.
That's a question. Well, keep it at Africa Link. That's DW Africa. That's our Facebook page.
and welcome back to the program. If you just joined us, this is Africa Link coming to you live from Bonn, Germany. Once more, my name is Mimi Mefo.
And I'm Isaac Mugabi. Welcome our listeners who are following us on our Facebook page, W Africa. This show is also airing on all our partner stations across the continent. Let me welcome once again Fidelia Amba. We like your comment anyway. Sentamu Peter, you are in Uganda, and I can see also Kum Esamba. Well, sometimes you're talking about Bobby Wine. Bobby Wine is still selling like a hot cake.
Right, Isaac. Now, coming up in the next 15 minutes, we would be talking about headers who are known for their anti-environmentally friendly practices. But we would be meeting an extraordinary headman in Karo, that is an area in South Africa, who is making peace with nature.
Because we fundamentally believe that this method of farming gives space for wildlife to coexist with production agriculture.
But before all that, you remember that only last week, a ruling by a Dutch appeals court said that Shell is responsible for the environmental damage caused by oil leaks and has been received with excitement.
Now, the court in the Netherlands ordered Shell to pay compensation or to compensate the farmers for damages to their land caused by the leaks in the years 2004 and 2005. As our correspondent in the Niger Delta, Mohamed Bello, reports, some of the farmers died in the course of waiting for justice.
Four Nigerian farmers won a landmark victory on Friday at a Dutch court. After 13 years of legal battles, the appeals court ruled that Shell's Nigerian branch must pay compensation of oil spills that polluted swaths of their land in the Niger Delta. The court also said Shell Nigeria and its apparent company, Royal Dutch Shell, should install a leak detection system to limit future damage to the environment. The affected farmers are from the villages of Goi, Oruma and Ikot Ada Udo in southeastern Nigeria. One of them, Eric Bazia, welcomed the ruling.
I sincerely thank God because it is no longer like before. This judgment is for all. But what I know is that the environment is going to be restored so that I can now go back and invest in that place and create job opportunities for my people. It is not the money that matters, but clean environment.
Another farmer, Dennis Uguru, asked Shell to pay the compensation quickly to enable him start his life afresh.
I am very, very much happy over the judgment which I have just been informed. For the many years which had made it very much, it has made me so poor and then I'm under suffering. Right now, my conditions which Shell had made it impossible for me to survive with my family, and today I have just got a very successful judgment. And I pray that this judgment should not go further than Shell to admit and then come and pay me the compensation.
Environmental campaigner Kentebe Eberado tells Africa Link he's happy to have been part of the struggle for justice for the farmers.
We are happy, we are excited, and we know that this judgment will bring some form of succor, which will bring some form of confidence restored back in the communities, that there is hope for their destroyed environment, that there is hope for every livelihood that they have lost, and that there is hope that there's hope for environmental justice. We have had 2 of the farmers dead in the course of waiting for justice. The third one is blind as at the time of giving this judgment.
Shell Nigeria said it was disappointed by the court's verdict. According to a report, an estimated 9 to 13 million barrels of crude oil has been spilled since 1958 in the Niger Delta. The area is one of the world's largest wetlands and the largest in Africa.
Bello Mohammed with that report, and we asked you as usual, like to always engage you, whether it was too little or too late. Raphael says that's how just the Western justice system is. Shell has done more damages in eastern Nigeria than just compensating for farmers.
And Oziondo Ezioni says that overdue, yes, late, no. It is never late to do what is just.
And Yarwa Kroma, added on, says never too late. They have family members behind. Many thanks for those comments.
Africa on the move.
Now, anyone who's ever been to South Africa would have noticed the thousands of kilometers of fencing that cut across the land. Usually designed to keep livestock in place, fences also have destructive consequences for the local environment.
The fences are not only deadly traps for wildlife, they also prevent animals from roaming freely, which leads to overgrazing, land degradation, and biodiversity loss. Some herders are now reversing this trend. However, they are also spearheading an ecological revolution. Stefan Moore's report is now presented by Malco Oti.
When herders lead their livestock onto the Great Plains of the Karoo in central South Africa, the animals aren't allowed to linger. To protect the vegetation from overgrazing, they have to be kept on the move, so they can only eat the tips of the plants. Head shepherd Dixon Incube has years of experience and has seen how the landscape has changed since he's been grazing his animals here.
At first, the land had some more bare patches and the grass growth was not that much, but now since we have started this process of herding, we find that no, there is a bit now change, even on grazing areas, the grass is more growth are shooting up.
The herders are part of the Shepherding Back Biodiversity Project. It supports commercial livestock keeping while boosting land restoration on this 24,000-hectare farm. The Karoo was once much greener and home to millions of antelope and buffalo. Their hoofs loosened the topsoil and their droppings fertilized it. In a bid to recreate the great migrations of the past, the project employs shepherds to lead livestock over the plains. Boos Marx is the project leader. He is confident that herders can help revive the whole region.
Because we fundamentally believe that this method of farming gives space for wildlife to coexist with production agriculture. So that's really the simple vision, is to find a mechanism by which we can foster biodiversity on production farm.
The thousands of kilometers of fences needed for intensive livestock agriculture are one of the main reasons why wildlife has disappeared. Fences prevent the animals from roaming free as they search for grazing land and water. They often end up tangled in barbed wire. In order to study the effects of the fenceless farming method on the environment, ecologists are monitoring the project. Over the past 2 years, head researcher Janine McManus and a group of students have recorded the number of plant species in selected study sites. In addition, the group evaluates the Earth Vegetation Index.
You can already start picking up changes in trends within where the herd has been grazing, especially over a longer resting period in parts of the farm. And the green index shows up quite pronounced. And we compared it to traditional farms where it isn't quite as pronounced. And there seems to be quite a significant color. And it's just looking at the pixels alone, and taking the green out of pixelization. But from that alone, you can already start seeing a difference.
There are many positive signs. Areas that have been grazed by the herds are seeing thicker plant growth. Slowly, wild animals are returning to the farm. More than 500 antelope have been counted, and even a leopard was recently sighted. A major success for Dixon Incube, especially since South Africa is still recovering from one of the worst droughts in recorded history.
I wish this process continues for the rest of the life, so that there won't be any damage to the land, so that even the neighbors in other countries can be more inspired about what they are seeing in this dry Karoo.
The project could inspire neighboring farmers. For the shepherds, however, this year's lambing season turned out to be very successful, adding another 1,800 sheep to the herd. Slowly but surely, the project is turning into a profitable venture.
That report was by Stefan Moll and presented by our own Michael Oti.
Focus Europe.
For the past days, we here at DW covered stories on vaccine delay in Africa and the impact, but it seems not only Africa is facing that. The European Union is well behind many other places in the world in its rate of inoculating people against the coronavirus. First, the bloc's vaccination campaign grappled with organization problems now it's facing a shortage of vaccines.
And DW's Keith Walker speaks with Brussels correspondent Georg Mattes, who explains what's behind a split between the European Union and the pharmaceutical group AstraZeneca. Take a listen.
If we go by the official line from AstraZeneca, the problem is a supply problem on the European side. It's likely, according to press reports here, that it's a company in Belgium that is producing compounds that are important for AstraZeneca. But even if that were the case, the European Union now argues that it should have been, if there would be a hierarchy of factories, there's 4 factories in total. So if from the perspective of the EU, AstraZeneca is a global company. And if there is a supply problem in one part of the world, it is all countries that buy that vaccine that should carry the burden, and not just the country where the supply problem has occurred. Because quite interestingly, in the UK, there is no supply reduction according to this problem that they are apparently having in the European Union.
Yeah, I think that the UK plays into this, and the AstraZeneca CEO is saying that this is the EU's own fault because it signed its vaccine supply deal too late. In fact, as far as I hear, 3 months later than the UK. So how is Brussels reacting to that?
Well, Brussels clearly says, just because we came later, that does not mean that we now should suffer the consequences that you can't deliver your vaccines because you're lacking a component. Also, AstraZeneca the CEO has pointed to a best effort clause, and the European Union has now made clear via their health commissioner, Ms. Kyriakides, that, that best effort clause cannot be used as an excuse. It's pretty much standard if you buy a product that hasn't been developed yet. And so basically what the EU is asking for is transparency. They want to see where vaccines are going and if everybody is treated equally in a fair way.
I mean, there's even talk that AstraZeneca has been asked to divert doses that have been earmarked for the UK to make up for the shortfall in supplies to supply the EU.
That's right. And from the European perspective, that is not about vaccine nationalism, as some in the UK have pointed out, but it's rather a matter of being fair. If you have paid for a product, and the EU has paid some 330 million in advance for pre-production facilities, then they do want to see that product as well. And reducing suddenly the vaccine doses in the first quarter from 80 million to just 31 million because there is a supply chain problem, that from the perspective of the EU is just unfair.
That was Keith Walker speaking to our correspondent in Brussels, Georg Mattes. Now, on a very, very sad note, news coming in right now. You remember Captain Moore, the World War II veteran who walked into the hearts of a nation in lockdown as he shuffled up and down in his garden to raise money for healthcare workers, has died after testing positive for COVID-19. He was 100 years. Remember Mimi, the old man who walked around.
Yeah,
his
efforts were quite very commendable, Isaac, because we rarely see this from people who are this old.
Yeah, he raised millions, for health workers who are at the front. And it's a sad story. That is news coming in right now that Captain Tom Moore, the World War II veteran, has just passed away because of COVID-19.
And may his soul rest in peace. Now we revisit our major story for today, which is Somalia and also Cameroon. We see people from Uganda reacting there on our Facebook page, DW Africa. We can see Fidelia Amba, who says that there is no African Union. It is a club of dictators. David Chamba says that nobody is ready to talk with the separatist fighters, even the cardinal from Rome. How do you expect to solve the problem talking only with one party? We also have reactions from Isaac. Do you see some of the comments from Aseng Daniel, who says that from Uganda, congratulations to the elected president of Uganda?
Well, the story is that Bobby Wine, the pop star and lawmaker whose real names are Robert Chagulanyi, was slated to meet the press today to talk about allegations that he was organizing a demonstration against, the results. But we reported in our previous show that he has challenged the results in court, and it is a story that we keep on monitoring.
And on Facebook, I can see Jack Tejele says that DW, I think it's now time for the people of Uganda to stand up and fight against this wicked dictator.
And on that very note, we come to the end of the show. Thanks for giving us company. My name is Isaac Mugabi.
And I am Mimi Mefo. Goodbye for now.
DW. Made for minds.